Hi, my name is Mike Lawrence. This video is one of a set which is intended to provide a different interpretation of the experimental results that constitute the foundation of current physics. It is clear that the present explanation for what we see in the universe is good in many ways, but it is missing an overall coherence. My view is that we need to look at physics with new eyes and consider an interpretation that explains most things well, even if it does question just about everything. I do not disagree with any experimental results, only the interpretation of those results. And I do not say that the hypothesis that I'll be talking about in these videos is the theory of everything, and that everything I suggest is correct, but it is a start. Each video in the set will cover an aspect of physics. The whole set needs to be understood together in combination, because many aspects rely on each other, and any one taken on its own may not be convincing to those relying on the current interpretations, some of whom may actually be offended by the hypothesis. There will be links in the videos to other videos in the set that cover closely related or overlapping aspects. Within the boxes in the videos are representations of the motions of the particles and their composites, which I will be explaining more fully. I'm happy to answer questions where I can, perhaps providing links to where a deeper mathematical analysis shows why I say what I do, since equations and graphs do not make good videos, and will post replies where appropriate on Twitter. I hope you enjoy the videos and they enable you to better appreciate the absolute symmetry and simplicity of nature. But please remember, I'm not an experienced presenter, and although I state everything as if it were correct, this is only a hypothesis. This is video number 29. What are photons? A photon is a loop and anti-loop stacked and rotating in the same orientation. The positive meons in one loop partially merge with the negative meons in the other loop. This is very much like recreating the merged pairs out of which the unmerged meons emerged in a Big Bang event. However, here the two are trying to merge completely, and so are chasing from loop to loop as well as around their own loop. The result is that they accelerate transversely up to their maximum velocity within the local background, which is always light speed. The newly partially merged pairs in the photon have almost no net mass or charge, but they do have frequency. That frequency affects the local background as if they had mass through the dragging effect of the attached chains, and because each component symmetric fermion loop has a charge, that mass effect will be 100% of the frequency of the pair of loops. Loops that have different frequencies, part emerging together, will share their frequencies to produce an average frequency when merged. In this state, the two loops are entangled, and separating them detaches their dragging merged pair chains, which form their own merged pair loops between the fermion loops. These merged pair loops build and elongate into a tunnel between the fermion loops, where there are no merged pairs inside. This is the quantum environment, and the fermion loops can travel without limits on their velocity because there is no background viscosity present within the tunnel. The tunnel ends will be limited travel at or below light speed, while the fermion loops will swap position at the tunnel ends randomly and at very high frequency. What is observed will be the sum over time at each tunnel end of the properties of each loop in proportion to how long each spends there, but over sufficient time will be the average of the two loops. This is the physical meaning of being in a superposition. When one end of the tunnel is perturbed sufficiently, the loop at the other end at that instant will be trapped as the tunnel collapses, and the other loop will be trapped at the other end. Unless there is a way of observing the instantaneous charge at a tunnel end, there is no way of predicting which loop will be trapped at which tunnel end. The non-locality created along the tunnel only extends to the distance apart in normal space that the tunnel ends have become separated by. This explains why in an entangled two-photon filter experiment, the filter may be thought to have separated out the appropriate photon, and yet the other can still be observed on the original path after the filter. It is because it is one end of the tunnel that passes through the filter, at the instant when the unfiltered photon is at that end, and immediately afterwards it is not possible to say which photon is at that tunnel end as the two continue swapping places. The same tunnel effect exists between atomic electron orbitals, enabling electrons to move between physically separate volumes at above light speed. This is shown in the total probabilities of each electron orbital state in an atom totaling 100%, whilst the physically separated shapes of those orbitals preclude any probability of an electron being on its way between them in normal space. Photons do not transmit forces. They provide frequency to loops in order to boost those loops' rotational rates back up to their locked-in frequencies as the loops lose energy to the background viscosity. In order to transmit those frequencies, the photons must stack briefly with the loops, so photons do not always travel at light speed. Bosons are also not force carriers, just composite stacks made of an even number of loops, but they may be necessary ingredients in providing strong mass and charge fields to enable loops to exchange meons. Related videos would be 1. The basic underlying structure of the universe, and 19. Entanglement, tunnels and superpositions. Thank you for watching.